Welcome to All Can, No Can't, the podcast where we toss out excuses, face our fears, and reclaim control. I'm Jeff Luther, your guide to mastering the chaos and turning obstacles into opportunities. Whether you're an entrepreneur navigating the ups and the downs of building a successful business or someone ready to rewrite the rules of your life, this is your space to grow, to push boundaries, and to embrace doing the hard shit that leads to greatness. Together, we'll explore stories of resilience, strategies for overcoming, and the mindset shifts that let you build a life on your terms. I use my experience with a life-altering diagnosis to help you find the can in every can't. So buckle up, because it's time to stop living in can't and start thriving in all can. You choose. Welcome back to All Can, No Can't, where we turn obstacles into opportunities. I'm your host, Jeff Luther, and my guest today is Brenna Lawrence. And I've had a lot of guests on this show, and one common intro we always hear on every podcast is, "Oh, I'm so honored to have Snoopy," or "I'm so honored to have such and such." But this is something that's really special to me. And I'm actually honored that there's trust that a stranger has in me to come on this show. She's someone who embodies exactly what this show is all about. When life told her she couldn't, when she couldn't make it out, she did. When the world tried to silence her, she found her voice. And then she stood on a TEDx stage and gave a talk and used her voice. And it's so impressive. Brenna survived domestic abuse, but more than that, she's taken that trauma and turned that into something powerful: truth, advocacy, and hope for people who need it most. And she does that through her empowerment coaching. But Brenna, this isn't just a story about surviving. It's about choosing, which I love. Like, you have chosen to live fully, to speak loudly, and you have refused to be defined by what tried to break you. I am so glad you're here. Thank you.
I appreciate it. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, it's fun. So we're going to start really light. You're a director of business development, right? You're at Brown & Brown?
Mm-hmm. I'm vice president now.
Vice president. Okay, nice. Good for you. And you haven't even been there that long. That says volumes about you.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. I've been with the team for 7 years. I've been in the business development role a little over 2. But
okay.
Yeah, I mean, they brought me the title, and I thank you very much. Excited.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you seem like that person, the driver.
I do love it.
Yeah. So how are they about your advocacy being so loud? They obviously know what you do in your off time, right?
Mm-hmm. So they've been extremely supportive, and it's funny because that's something that I never take for granted, that they have given me the room and the support to grow, because if I grow, they're growing. So it's an investment in me as a teammate. But whether it has to do with public speaking, or when I applied for TEDx and told them I'm going to do this is another job, I wasn't asking for permission or for room. I was telling them this is what I was going to do, and I got the, I'm proud of you, go get it. So it's been awesome. And then the day of my TED Talk, I mean, I definitely invited a lot of people. I'm in different women's groups around Charleston and whatnot, but I will say that my team at Brown & Brown showed up. My entire benefits department came, all the leadership came, and I kind of peeked out before I went on stage and was like, huh, like everybody's here, like it's crazy. But they walk the walk. I'm very fortunate to be where I am.
Oh, that's awesome. Mm-hmm. And I want to hang on that for just a second.
Sure. So
anybody listening, sometimes you feel like you're on your own little island when you got shit you're carrying around. Mm-hmm. But I think it's important to know that you found your voice, you made it loud, and then you got support from places that you really didn't know if you would or wouldn't.
Yeah.
So anybody that's listening, take that to heart.
I mean, it's a game changer,
Oh yeah, man. I mean, for sure. And this is kind of a theme for me, and I think I read something in your TEDx bio. Like, shame lives in darkness, right? And you keep things hidden in the dark, and that's where the shame grows. And
absolutely.
you put light on it, and shame can't live there.
No, and we all have things that we're ashamed of, and it's relative, and at some level, people can all identify with being ashamed of something. So it's just a matter of, and that's not to say that it's like, well, this isn't heavy or this is. Like, we all understand what shame is. So if that's the universal, then we can kind of give each other space to expunge or to shut it, you know?
Yeah. And that's an important thing for people to know. Like, there's no level of hurt, right, that surpasses another. There's not, oh, well, I cut my leg. Well, I broke my leg. They both hurt.
Yeah.
And like in shame, it's shame, regardless of what it is, what you're carrying around. And sometimes we minimize what we're going through because we compare it to what we think might be a bigger thing someone else is going through.
Agreed. Definitely.
All right. So in jest, I think you said a second ago, I peeked around the curtain. I was like, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
But
for sure.
I'm so surprised to hear that. You are such an eloquent speaker. Did you get nervous?
I appreciate that. And yes, definitely. So it's funny because when I started at Brown & Brown, I didn't apply in the typical way. I didn't fill out an application and apply. I think we may have talked about it.
A little bit.
So,
but it's worth repeating for sure.
Okay. So my husband and I were moving down from New York. I was pregnant with our second. And at that point, I had been in insurance for a while and kind of worked my way through the trenches. I learned a lot. I learned there are all these different departments and places to be in different skill sets that were valuable. So what ended up happening is I had sought out Brown & Brown, and I had a plan to go and work for them eventually after I had the baby. I didn't want to be on the road and in sales with a big belly. So I connected with the director of operations here in Charleston via LinkedIn and was like, hey man, I'm gonna come and work for you guys. And he was like, we're not hiring, but okay. And I was
okay,
like, no,
crazy lady.
Yeah, exactly. So every month I would call, reach out, try to connect. And I remember at one point he was like, what is it that you want? And I was like, I just want to stay relevant. Like, I want you to remember me, and when the time is right, I'm gonna come and work for you. So I tell people I couldn't make them hire me, but I did force them to interview me. So I went out to lunch with, this one, and he would bring someone from the office, and then I'm like, who else can I meet? And it's funny because I didn't know then that was going to be my sales process, was just meeting people and being like, just get to know me. I promise I'm not a psycho. So then I kind of went round robin and met everyone, begged them to let me just come and shadow people. And they probably thought that I was all the way crazy. But I tell people I would have pushed a broom to get in there because that's what I wanted to do. And I knew that once I got in that I could find my spot. So then I remember when they sent me my offer, I signed that shit and sent it back so fast. Like, you can't take it back now, you hired me.
No quitsies.
Yeah, I was like, we're good. But then our leader, he got all the information and he called me up and he was like, hey, I was going through your stuff and I realized we hadn't talked about where you went to college. And I was like, so I dabbled in college and then kind of explained some of it. But through the interview process, I was so afraid that somebody was going to ask, well, where did you go to school? And that when I said that I didn't finish college, that was going to be a knockout, and that was just it. So at that point I was like, I guess we know I can sell because you hired me, right?
That's right.
But that's something that is impactful to me, important to me, that the paper ceiling is real, and sometimes you just need to get to know someone and kind of get a feel like I can teach them things and they can get their credentials or whatever they need, but do you trust this person? Do you want them on your team? So I'm a huge fan of that, and just getting to know the human, I mean, putting them in the right seat is incredibly important. But I laughed at my boss when he said, I would have hired you, we could have talked, and I was like, I would not have made it past the first round, and that's not his fault. That's just how the system is, But But yeah, that's definitely how I got voted on the island finally.
And you say paper ceiling, as opposed to glass, right?
Yeah, I mean, I get the glass ceiling is definitely real, but I would say the idea of
not for you.
Well, no. But we can get to that. But when I hear well, that's not going to work, and I'm like, well, let me see
But
if
isn't
it's
it
going to
though?
work. Because sometimes I have to learn the hard way.
Yeah.
But when it does work, oh man, does that boost my confidence? I'm like, I told you, told you it was going to work. But
Told you it was going to work, and it's going to work next time too.
yeah, I mean, when things like that happen, it just continues to build the confidence. But so then after I got the job, I remember sitting in the conference room, and I was one of the only women at that time on the sales team. And I expect all the boys to be respectful and to look at me when I'm talking to them. And then I would speak, and they would all look at me, and I was like, ugh, like my hands would sweat, and my voice was shaky. I tell people I sounded like a lamb. Like I was like, nah, and I could not control it. And I was like, how am I gonna do my thing and nail a presentation and all these things if all of a sudden I'm like scared of my own shadow? And I spent my
Yeah.
whole first half of my life working bartending and waitressing in restaurants. Like I can talk to people, but I felt like me not having a degree, like they were gonna find out, and people are gonna be like, well, how did she get in here? You know what I mean? So so I learned about imposter syndrome, and then I was like, okay, so that's a step, but we don't live there. So I was like, okay, well now I'd have to prove it to myself that I do
Hang
belong
on a
here.
second. Did you know that then? Did you know, all right, imposter syndrome, that's a step. We don't live there. We keep going. Or did you have to process
I
that?
did. I learned what imposter syndrome was, and I was like, oh, I have that. Like that's what my problem is. And then I was like, but I don't want to live here because
Yeah.
that just feels like unpopular opinion. That feels like victim mentality to me. But I'm like,
Yeah.
it's not their fault. Like I'm the one that feels like maybe they're thinking things like it's all these assumptions that are not
Right.
going on, and it's really like, oh, if someone thinks I shouldn't be here, like let them tell me. And if they don't, I'm just going to keep doing what I do. But
Yeah.
and especially when I have girlfriends and peers that are going through imposter syndrome, I'm like, that's a step. Like we don't live there. Like keep going.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Wow.
Yeah, it works.
All right. So you started fighting through that, your imposter syndrome.
Yeah, and then so we set goals internally. We have a producer retreat every year, and we set 5 goals. And I made it a point to always pick something that scares the crap out of me, because I hate being afraid of things, and I feel like when we tackle things that we're afraid of, that it makes us stronger. So one year I challenged myself to donate as much blood as I could throughout the year because I absolutely hate needles. So I figured
Okay.
if I donated blood, I would be doing good. So I'm incentivized to do good. I'm very competitive. So if I can, donate the most that I'm allowed to, like that's a win for me. And putting it as a goal keeps me from being a weenie and chickening out. So, because I don't want to sit up in front of all the guys and be like, I chickened out, I'm afraid of needles. So,
Right.
so then that was kind of a theme for me after that. I was like, okay, well, every year it has to be, there's got to be something I'm afraid of. So then
Okay.
so I put public speaking on my goals because talking in front of the guys in the conference room was like wrecking me. So
Yeah.
I challenged myself to do that, and then that's how I came across Disrupt HR. Was I had a friend invite me to one, and I don't know if it's because the one in Charleston has a bar, and I had a couple beers, and I was like, oh, this is scary. I should do this.
Right.
But then I applied, and frankly I was really hoping that they weren't going to pick me. I was so nervous. And they were like, yeah, we'd love to have you. I was like, awesome. Like, that's great.
Oh, that's great news.
Oh, that's wonderful. So then my goal with that is like, okay, well, like I don't want to throw up and I don't want to pass out. Like, so if I can just like get through this, I will be okay. And I invited teammates and customers and prospects and
Oof.
really like, ass on the line because I believe in that. But
Yeah,
it
so
worked.
that's unusual.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of one of our mottos, our credos at Brown and Brown. The only constant is change, and
Yeah.
we live there. Especially if you're in sales, like your ass is on the line. You just got to do what you got to do. Like some days are gonna suck, but you got to do
Right.
the thing. So I did that,
Yeah.
and then I got through it, and I also loved it. I was like, oh man, that is
Yeah.
fun. So then after
Yeah.
that, I was like, well, I've been afraid of this whole time, but not anymore. I mean, I would say deciding to share my story in the TED Talk was different.
Yeah.
But it's funny because when I applied for TEDx the year before, and I wanted the topic to be neutral thinking because that was the first big mindset shift for me, and I was like, this is such a game changer. It can help so many people. And I was like, I'm definitely going to share this. And I guess it didn't have enough like oomph. And then the
Right.
next year, kind of like talking through it with some people, and just starting to understand, because you look at people and you're like, this is crazy. Like I, saw this person at Publix. I would never think that they have gone through this crazy thing, and that's what I saw when I went to TEDx last year, was seeing people that it's like you just don't have any idea the kind of things that people go through in their life or anything.
No.
And then it kind of hit me with talking with one of my friends that is she's the CEO over at my sister's house. Um, we just had a conversation about how do I level up and how can I get better. And she was like, well, you have to find your audience and you have to find how you're going to serve them. And at that point, I'm like, well, I'm a girl's girl. I'm raising two little girls, and I know my motivation is to help them learn a lot of the things that I had to learn the hard way. And I think a lot of
Right.
women are learning them the hard way, especially when it comes to self-worth and confidence. And then it was kind of like all these things just crashed together, and I had like my Dorothy moment. I was like, it's all right here in front of me. So
Yeah.
so I just threw it out there, and I was like, this is a big deal, and I can do good with it. And really understanding, and I say this in my TED talk, when I asked my girlfriend Tasha, I'm like, well, how can I help you guys? Because I'm in business development, I'm all about visibility, so who can I introduce you to, or how can I help? And when she said, well, part of our issue is that companies don't want to be associated with that number one spot for sponsorship because it's domestic violence. And I was like,
Right.
well, I mean, yeah, but they need help. And she's like, right, but it's not like flashy. And I was like, yeah, but that's effed up. And then I thought about it, and I was
Right.
like, well, we don't lead with domestic violence. And then I was like, I don't lead with domestic violence. Like, so, like, where do I get off being pissed at other people when I'm like, I'm technically a part of the problem? So that was also,
I mean,
the universe was showing me all the things and was like, you want to do it, like, this is how you do it. So
yeah.
so then I did it.
The universe shows you all kinds of shit when you start paying attention, right?
Amen. That is so true.
Yeah.
I say that
Yeah.
all the time. We're always looking for signs, and sometimes the sign is right here, and you're like,
Right. But it's not the one you want to see,
yeah,
Brenna.
but
I want to
that's
see a
it.
different sign.
Yep, exactly.
That's an amazing story. I would say it's a fun story, but it's an amazing story, honestly.
Thanks.
I want to get in your head a little bit about your talk.
Okay.
Like when you decided, okay, I'm going to talk about domestic violence. Was there any apprehension, or did you just go right in? Were you like, fuck it, I'm going all in 1,000%? Or did you hold back and think, okay, well, maybe I don't want to share this. Maybe people don't want to hear it, or maybe somebody else suffered more than I did. Did you go through any of that stuff?
So I never thought like mine didn't deserve attention because like other people had been through, worse technically, because I firmly believe in not comparing ourselves. And frankly, like what I went through, if somebody else was like, well, theirs was worse, yours wasn't that bad, that would really piss me off. So
Yeah.
I kind of respected like what I went through, and I know I was there, like I know what it took to get through it, kind of thing. So
Yeah.
no part of me was like, I don't deserve this space to talk about it. Um, if anything, I had to find a balance between almost validating, like he wasn't just mean, like there was abuse and it was substantial, without just making the whole thing not like a sob story, but the point of it wasn't for me to get up and list off all these things and have people feel sorry. It was just to
Right.
kind of be like, this is the spectrum of what abuse looks like. Like, you probably weren't expecting me to say something like this, and that's the point, is that it's someone near you, it's someone next to you, and people that aren't very close to me, that just know, what I do as far as confidence and my public speaking. When I told them, the most common reaction I got was like, I didn't know that. And I'm like, yeah, no, I know. Like, we don't talk about it. Like,
Right.
it's like we don't talk about Bruno kind of thing. Like we don't talk about it. But the year before, I started to get more involved with my sister's house, and we started having conversations at home, really with our girls, just around safety and boundaries when it comes to other people. And I started to tell them a little bit about what happened to me. And so it was my first like coming out story about that was around
Yeah.
the volunteer work that I did for my sister's house and what my husband did, and then our gala. And like I wanted people to understand why it was such a big deal to me. So that was the first time that I shared the story, and that was crazy because I shared it like on Facebook and on LinkedIn, and it was like across social media. I was like, well, it is what it is. I can't unshare it. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of understanding where it's like I protected other people and their emotions, and like, well, is this going to be heavy for them? Like I protected other people for so long, and then I was
Right.
like, I'm doing a disservice to me at a minimum, and definitely to other people that are going through this. Um, so then after that, I was kind of like that was like the first layer where I was like, okay, well, I said what I said, and that's when it triggered people saying like, hey, I read your post, I didn't know. I'm like, it's okay. Like, of course you didn't know.
Yeah.
And especially if you met me since I moved to Charleston, like, of course you wouldn't know. I think
Right.
it was harder for people that grew up with me and certain family members it really like hit them in the face, which
Yeah.
is ironic to say that.
Right. Yeah. Pardon the pun.
Yeah, right? Uh,
Which is, I mean, that's how you lead into it in your TEDx talk, right?
mm-hmm,
Is, I mean, you were literally punched in the face.
mm-hmm.
Which these are hard questions for me to ask, not because of the topic, but because I don't really know how. But how long did you date the guy that was abusing you?
So technically, we broke up after a year. And once we broke up, the abuse got worse, which sounds crazy, but
It does sound crazy.
it does. It was crazy. But he just, and that was the hard part to try to fit into the talk, because the talk is only 10 minutes. And the
Yeah.
point of the talk is not to explain the whole timeline. And actually working through the workshops at some point during the TEDx training, somebody was like, well, why did he do it? And how did you get out? And what ended up happening? And I was like, we only have this much time to like kind of
Yeah.
talk through all of it. And what I understood after going through it and kind of this like healing journey is that when you're isolated and brainwashed, you don't know that you are when you're going through it. And like a lot of people feel like they're alone, so you just kind of feel like you're alone, and you don't realize that there's like it's like this psychological like shit show that you're going through.
Yeah.
So he had me very convinced that everyone was out to get me, and he was the only person that I could trust, and that when I made him mad, that I still needed to work on that kind of thing. So I was in a very broken place, and my
Yeah.
parents had broken up, and frankly, I went from like a very conservative, strict household to like when my parents broke up, it was total free for all. And my ex saw that as like that I had been kind of groomed for it. My parents didn't have a great relationship, and that obviously led to them breaking up. But then it was very much my parents were both trying to be my friends, and I was getting
Mm-hmm.
away with things. And like what I really needed was a parent, and
Yeah.
I had two people that were fighting themselves, and I was 17 and wanted to get my own way. But when I look back on it, I feel disappointed that how my parents, how they acted, and frankly, they didn't just like put their foot down and be like, no, like you're my kid, you're staying home, I want to protect you. Like there wasn't anything like that, which is frustrating. But I know that I'm not alone in that either.
Was it like, so I went through a divorce. I've got 3 kids, and one of the things that you look out for was there some of your parents where they would try to leverage the other, or they would try to get you to love them more than you did the other
Oh,
parents, so
for
you
sure.
almost became a
Oh, for
weapon?
sure. So even
Yeah.
even when my parents were together, just to be frank, like my father cheated on my mom on and off through their whole marriage, and it was a
Uh,
very sneaky and also in your face way. So it was like a
yeah.
friend from work, and if my mom was working late, we would randomly go to the mall on like a Wednesday, and right, like who takes their kids to the mall on a Wednesday night? And I was like, oh, my dad,
Oh, should I?
and then he
Should
would
I start? To,
give my sister and I some money, like here's $20, like go shopping. I'm like, okay, like so my sister and I are, hanging out at the mall, and then we'd like walk by the food court, and it's like, oh, doesn't dad work with that chick? Like that's weird. And it was like, well, and then that's when he would like pit us against mom, like, well, your mom doesn't think that guys should have girlfriends. And we're like, well, that's not right. You should be friends with who you want. Like, we were children.
Right.
He was taking advantage of the situation. So
Yeah.
then as I got older and kind of looked at it, that's when, 16, 17-year-old Brenna, I was kind of indignant about it. I was like, you've been pulling the wool over people's eyes around here, But
Yeah.
but then, however, my mom was handling divorce. Like, I guess I just ended up in this spot where, like, I was fighting with people in my family because I was
Okay.
disappointed and I was mad at them and kind of raging out. And I think that my ex, like, that really helped him to kind of, like, pull me towards him,
Mm-hmm.
But by all means, like, he saw I had a job, I had a car, and I was being left alone by my parents.
Yeah.
So, like, he was
Yep.
like jackpot.
Right. Yeah, you had no. I don't know what you had.
I had
Sorry.
no structure.
That's
I mean, when my parents
Yeah.
found out my mom was working nights, like, literally, like, I got away with murder. Like, it was ridiculous.
Yeah. And then, so there's a couple of pieces that I pick up on. Like, you see your dad in the food court with another woman. Wait, he works with that woman. Oh yeah, your mom thinks that guys shouldn't have friends. So then in your mind, you're like, oh, okay, well that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I guess I see this playing out all the time. And this is a horrible thing to say, but I'm one of those people, like, if I think it, I'm gonna say it. To me, we do that to ourselves so often, and it's like the girls' softball coach that is a male, rubbing the girls' shoulders, and you're like, dude, you shouldn't be doing that. What are you talking about, man? I'm just rubbing her shoulders.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, okay. I
Right.
mean, yeah.
You dismiss
But it's so wrong. Like, it's like, and it's the same thing. It's like these little chinks in your armor,
Yeah.
bit after bit.
Well, it's like it's awkward and we feel bad, like, accusing people of it, but it gets taken advantage of. It's like, kind of, we were saying, signs, like, that is a flag, man, that's a sign, and it gets, like,
Oh.
normalized. And then it's like, I don't want to be the bad guy, but as a mom of two girls, I will be the bad guy and I will go too far, and then if I'm wrong, I have no problem apologizing, but if the damage is done, I can't undo that,
Right.
So,
Yep.
so right now I'm a little like, I mean, I dropped my girls off today at summer camp, and the camp is going to the movies. So right before I dropped them off, I was like, quick safety reminder, like, we go to the bathroom before we go to the movies, and if we have to go at the movies, like, we go with each other. We don't take accounts.
Yeah.
Like, a counselor doesn't need to go in the stall with you, and it's probably overkill, but I'd rather it just be like, my mom said I can't do that, and they know my number. I'm like, if anything weird happens, you are allowed to say, call my mom, and if they don't, you're allowed to say, call my mom, or she will lose her shit. So they're allowed to say that.
Oh, we did talk about that a little, not that specific thing, but a little bit, like letting our kids cuss and that sort of thing. It's like, yeah, I mean, but keep it in this house, unless you just can't.
Well,
Yeah.
and my girls, like, I had coffee with someone this morning, and we were talking about families and stuff, and I said how in our house you will get in more trouble for negative self-talk or throwing a pity party than for cussing. So
Yeah.
if my daughter says, like, oh shit, I'm gonna be like, bro, like, be polite, right? We don't cuss.
Yeah.
They know they're not allowed to swear at me, for sure. But
Right.
but if they say something like, I'm rotten, I'm stupid, it's like, whoa, we don't talk like that. Like, and they know that. So
Yeah.
that's something, that lying and negative self-talk, you will get. I will go 0 to 60 in this house.
Right. And that leads me to a deeper question. What I'm really, like, curious about is, so one, domestic violence. Are you feeling stuck? Overwhelmed? It's like you're fighting against something that you can't even see or name. I've been there, literally. I survived sudden cardiac death, and I rebuilt everything. I've mastered the art of controlling the chaos. Now I coach a small group of high performers that are willing to do the work to do the same thing. No fluff, no excuses, we just get results. If you're ready to take back control, apply now at jeffluther.com. This is all can, no can. It's rampant.
Absolutely.
But but is intended for you to forget what I just said. That's not what I mean. However, there's so many tiers, right? And everyone thinks domestic violence, oh, that means that somebody's beat up in black and blue and the police are called. And that's not really, that could be part of it. But in order for the, whatever you call them, the bad person.
Yeah, the abuser.
What's the word? The abuser. Yeah, in order for them to be successful, they have to keep it hidden.
Yeah.
And then for them to keep it hidden, you have to keep it hidden. You, the person being abused. How can people be empowered? And I know it's limited. Like, I don't want to isolate women as being the only people that are abused domestically. It happens to men too, but not as often. But how are people empowered for it not to happen?
I mean,
because it happens so often.
Yeah. So that's interesting because when we build the TED Talks, the culmination is like what's your call to action, right? And I said to my coaches, I'm like, this is the thing: domestic violence is not going away. Like, it's just not.
Right.
And as opposite of cynical as I live, that is, unfortunately, I just think that is the truth. But that's why I tried to do my best to use the examples of, like, no one said anything. And saying something as simple as, like, you don't have to say, like, I see the marks, I know what's going on, because you will put somebody on the defensive. But if you can be brave enough to say, like, I don't care what's going on, but you don't deserve to be hit, and then just walk away, because, like, that's going to resonate with somebody. You know what I mean? Because I don't think that I'm not a trained therapist or anything like that, but I don't think that there's a perfect way to do it. And I also think that if you see something, that, like, you need to say something. So I've seen women, I've worked with women that have the marks that, like, I know what that means. And I knew at the time that taking her aside and saying, like, listen, I went through it too. I see that you're going through it. Like, that could completely blow up, you know? But there was finally a time and I just told her, I was like, I used to have the same marks. And she looked at me and I was like, we don't have to talk about it, but you don't have to live like that. Like, you don't. And she was like, well, it's fine. I'm like, I know. And I would say the same thing, but, like, you don't have to live like that. And something like slipping someone a number. I mean, you do have to be careful because you don't know how volatile it is and whether or not the abuser has access to their phone and things like that. Like, you definitely don't want to put them in more danger, and you don't want to put yourself in danger too. I mean, like, people are crazy, you know? But I think saying something, offering that help, and just being gentle and human about it, that's a big thing that you can do. And then, as I said, when someone does come forward, like, tell them off the bat, like, questions like, why did you stay? Why do you tolerate it? Like, that, none of that is helpful.
Right.
Because some people,
let me just make you feel more stupid.
Well, it's kind of like, well, you know, well, you were having sex with him, right? And it's like, well, yeah, leave me alone. like I was, like, what? And it also, like, that's one piece of this whole puzzle. And most of the time when you're in an abusive relationship like that, it's not nice. Like, it's not nice sex. You know what I mean? It's just, but when you ask the people questions like that, it puts them on the defensive, and it's putting more shame on them. And a lot of people don't have kind of the wherewithal to be like, dude, I was isolated and brainwashed. Like, I was broken. Like, sorry.
Yeah.
And, like, what good is that doing, having that conversation, you know?
Right. And you don't know you're isolated and brainwashed and broken until it's behind you. Like,
yes. 100%. Like, I literally thought I could not trust anyone. And, like, now that I'm in my 40s, I know about gaslighting and enabling and isolation. Like, I understand the things, so it's very easy for me to look back and be like, this is where it went off the rails. And that's why it's hard not to look at other grown-ups in my life and be like, what the fuck was everyone doing? That, like, no one had seen this, and no one had seen anything like it, and no one could say, like, what was going on. It's just crazy to me.
Was there a time when you started to come out of this, or maybe even when you were in it, was there a time when you had resentment or anger for people around you that didn't help?
I don't think it, like, I was pretty defensive of everything that was going on, and I don't think I recognized that I wasn't getting help, because in that time I really thought that I just couldn't make this relationship work. and that like I didn't realize that I was kind of being put in this back burner spot and just really being used as a backup if none of his other opportunities worked out.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't think I felt it then. I will say that post TED Talk, uh, the reaction that I got from family was not great. But frankly, I had already kind of, in between all of this, I already felt like a black sheep of the family. And I kind of carried that as a someday I'll be able to like get in people's good graces. But then I kind of realized that I think the reason that I'm a black sheep is because I won't tolerate certain things.
Yeah.
And now I embrace it. Now I'm good with it. So, I mean, I had family reach out like, I'm so sorry you went through that. I didn't know. And I'm like, you were there. Like, please don't. Like, that's.
But you did.
You did know. And like, it's okay. And I'm not trying to fight with you about it. But like, I don't need canned wording and like, I'm glad you're thriving. Like, ugh, gross. Like I don't need that. So, I don't know.
So did you think when you were going through, when you were in it, y'all were broken up, and
well, that's when I moved in with them, which is messed up. But then we were friends. Yeah, and then that's how like all that went. It was like, well, we're just friends. So like our entire relationship was like on the low, and then the fact that I was also being abused was like on the low. So it was very it was dark. I don't know how best
oh,
to
I can
describe
imagine.
it.
Yeah. Yeah, and you get in that dark place and you feel like you're never going to get out.
Never. I mean, I tried to get this guy to join the army. Like, I was like, oh, that's a good idea. Like, you should do that. And he was this close. Then he was like, you trying to get rid of me? I was like, no.
What?
Totally going to wait
That's
for you
crazy.
to come back. But I was like, could not wait. I was trying anything.
That was your way out.
I mean, I was introducing him to other women. Like, maybe she's nice. Like, you know. And I have guilt about that now because I don't know how he treated people. But, but
right.
I was like, if I could just get him to like leave me alone, that would be great. But it was
What
hard.
do you do? What do you do to get rid of that guilt? Time.
I mean, I was talking to somebody about it, and they were like, you have to give yourself grace. Like, you know, you were trying to survive.
Ugh.
Because I was like, I kind of feel like, what if I like push somebody else in front of the bus? You know, like I don't know.
What if you didn't?
Yeah. What if I was still getting run over? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
So
I don't know.
Part of how I handle that guilt is I'm trying to help women, mostly women now, so that it doesn't happen, or so that they can make an exit. I guess that's like my like penance, you know?
Yeah, I mean, easy for me to be armchair quarterback, right? I didn't live it, but man, I let that shit go.
Yeah. Well, yep.
Was there a piece of you that was like, you know what? If I can just be a little bit better, this will work.
100%.
And he'll stop.
100%.
Yeah.
And I mean, I would, to that point, like I went above and beyond. I mean, I when I say my life was like tangled up, at one point I was working for him, and I was also renting an apartment from him, and he paid me just enough that I would almost have enough to pay him back in rent. Like, it was crazy. And it was for the good of the business, and he was just starting out, and I was trying, and I supported him, but when I look back, I was like, you work me like a dog, man, and like never appreciated any of it. And I mean, I was, when I'm all in. So I was there from planning it was the little restaurant, like I helped plan the menu, run the kitchen, like I worked on my days off. I mean, I was all in to show like I'm invested, I care, I love you, like I'm trying to do this.
Right.
And it was like nothing I could do was good enough.
That's wild.
So I kind of felt like constantly chasing my tail, you know. I was like, one of these days I'm gonna figure out how to not be an asshole, but I guess it's not today.
God, you're such a different person now.
Yeah.
There's a book called Nobodies, and it is about illegal immigrants and how they get hung up in this farming world that we don't know anything about. And that's exactly how it is done. They work, so their rent is paid for them up front, and then they work just enough to pay back the rent, and then there's interest because the rent was prepaid for them, so they're constantly working to pay this off, and they never pay it off. So all these illegal immigrants that are running around on these farms, most of them are in that exact situation.
I mean, that's wild, because he would want to he would want to go out, whether we like went somewhere, went out drinking or whatever it is, and I was like, you don't pay me enough to go out. Like I don't have it, you know. Like, and you
Right.
know exactly what I make. You know what my rent is. Like I don't have it, man. And then it got into the point where, if he wanted to go to the city for a couple days, and we go, he would spend the money, and it was like I had a bill then, and I was like in debt constantly, and I couldn't just stay home because he also didn't trust me and wouldn't leave me alone. Like it was really intense. I mean, I like slept with my phone. I was so afraid that he would go through my phone and see something and get mad, and I was really careful about what I said to people and who I talked to, but God forbid he saw me talking to somebody on the street, like
Yeah.
he would find out, and I would usually end up paying for it. Like not allowed to have friends. It was not good. And then I'm over here telling people like, no, I'm a grown up. We're just friends. Like we're just friends. It's fine.
Right.
But it wasn't.
What was the catalyst?
Um, for it to finally end, I
Yeah.
mean the fights were getting worse. They weren't as frequent, but like when they were happening, they were getting explosive. So it got to the point where I was like, I'm like one like bad move away from something really bad happening. I mean,
Yeah.
I started kind of pushing back. Um,
Mm.
I mean, I guess sometimes like alcohol had something to do with it, and for a while I completely stopped drinking. I stopped drinking for a year twice because I would get so mad and so emboldened when I was drinking that I would like fight
Ah.
back, and then it would
Right.
inevitably be worse. So it was like to my benefit to not drink around him, because then I wouldn't be like I was thinking, and I wouldn't like pick a fight. But what actually happened was I was working at a tanning salon, and just random, and I was working for a crackhead. It was great. This guy was crazy, but it was right down the corner from my apartment, and I pretty much worked there like anytime the place was open. But the guy that was working in the computer lab next door, which is dating me because they don't have like computer cafes anymore, but it was like a,
Right.
but we got to be friends, and he had said, "Oh, you have to meet my buddy Jay," and I was like, "I do not need to make any more friends. Like, I'm good." And the fact is, like, I never knew if my ex was gonna pop around the corner or whatever. I'm like, so like, I don't need to make friends. It's fine. And then he told me the guy's name, and it was wild. My husband now went to high school with my ex, so I actually knew his name and knew who he was before I actually met him, which is crazy. And that happened, and I was like, oh, that's too close quarters. Like that's messy.
Right.
Like I
Yeah.
can't do that. And then so I dismissed it. And then one day this dude pulls up, and I tell my girls the way I met Daddy was this guy pulled up in a big truck with a big dog and a big smile, and I was like, hey, like I really couldn't help myself. And then and he was so friendly, and I was like, oh, you're Jay Lawrence. I heard about you. I was like, I heard you used to sleep all the time in school. Like, what's up with that? And then I found out that my husband worked a job all through high school to help pay for high school. He went to a private school, so he was like, yeah, man, I was tired because I was working until midnight or whatever. So it was kind of crazy how my ex used to paint stories without it being the whole thing. I was like, he wasn't
Right. Yeah.
lazy, he was working. Like,
Right. To
um,
pay for his own
yeah,
school in high school.
exactly. And then
That's pretty impressive.
it was. And when I got to know Jay, I was very scared. I mean, I expected the worst from everybody. So I kind of was
Yeah.
like, I expected him to be a problem. But I was also, there was something about him when I met him. I was like, didn't strike me like other guys did. And because of that, I definitely didn't want him to find out anything that was going on. So I really kept him at arm's length. So besides being scared that my ex was going to find out, or that Jason would find out that I am a hot mess and involved
Right.
in all of this and just run for the hills, I would only hang out with him if it was like a group date. So we had a couple group dates, which I was like, if my ex found out, I could be like, I am allowed to go out with people. I'm not on a date with one dude.
Right.
And then Jason had asked me out to the movies on like a date, and I was like, oh yeah, that sounds great. Can I call you back? And then like ghosted hard, like did not talk to him for like 4 years. Was like, I can't, and I don't know what to say, and I'm just gonna act like that never happened. And I literally just
Oh
cut off,
wow.
I cut off all contact. I moved to Charleston for a hot second to see if I wanted to live here and move back. Like I was all over the place. And then um, about 4 years later, I think, uh, I was late on getting onto Facebook because I'm a Gen Xer, or technically a millennial. But I was really late to the game getting on Facebook. So then when I did, my ex had already been on Facebook, and then Jason found me on Facebook, right? So he hit up
Okay.
my ex, and my ex was like, Jay Lawrence. He friended me on Facebook. I was like, oh, what's he up to? Like, that's weird. And
Oh.
I was like, oh, that's so random. And he was like, he's only doing that because he's looking for you. And I was like, no, hope not. And then he friended me on Facebook, and that's how we started talking again. And he asked me out on like a date, and I was getting to the point where I was like, so along that timeline was my 10-year high school reunion, which is in my TED talk, where my ex was literally like, had his own place, had a girlfriend, all the things, and I was really getting to the point where I was like, I need you to leave me alone. Like, I don't want to do this. I don't want you showing up here anymore. Like, I don't want any of this. And then when Jason came back into my life, I was like, this is my only shot to have a normal life. And like, God put him back in front of me for a reason. Like, I am not gonna flush this at all. So after the cracked rib, I literally started talking to Jay maybe a month later is when he friended me on Facebook. So I was healing up, and I was feeling very, very, I don't want to say brave or brazen more,
Right.
that when it happened and he started coming around, I told my ex, I said, I'm gonna date this guy, and you are not gonna fuck it up. And he was mad at me. He's like, well, what are you gonna do? Get married? I'm like, I don't know, but I'm telling you that if you fuck this up, I'm telling everybody everything, and I'm gonna start with your mom. And he was like, you won't. I'm like, I will, dude. Like, because this is coming to a head one way or another. I was like, so like,
Right.
I'm gonna tell your mom, I'm gonna tell your dad, I'm gonna tell your girlfriend, like, I'm gonna tell everybody. So like, this cannot go on anymore. And meanwhile, I was still working for him, and he used to get pissed
Oh,
and
wow.
fire me like once or twice a week. He would get
Right.
mad, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna clean up and close up and go home, and then you're gonna call me tomorrow. And he called me tomorrow. You coming to work? I'm like, yeah, dude, I'm coming to work. Like, what am I gonna do? Um, and then that went on. I mean, I worked for him for a couple of years, but when I started dating Jason, it was a little less than a year before I finally quit, because it was just too much. Yeah, my ex got mad, and he wanted to ban Jason from the restaurant, and it was so stupid.
Oh my
And I was
gosh.
like, is this what it looks like when you just control all the things? And I was like, you know what? Like, I'm out. I quit. And he was like, what? And I was like, yeah, no, I'm done. And I only quit once, because that was it.
You got fired a
I
bunch,
got
but I
fired
quit
all the
once.
time, but I was like, he's like, he called me the next day, are you coming back? I was like, no, man, when I quit exactly one time. Like, I'm not. And then that was like, hey, wait a sec. Like, why am I going back to get abused?
Right.
Like, if I quit, like, I should just quit all of it. So, and I had safety then. Jay didn't really know what was going on yet, but my ex didn't hit me after Jay started coming around.
Well, you thought you had safety, right? And
Yeah.
that's what counts.
Mhm.
Like, that's where the choice is.
Yeah.
That's where you chose, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I was very lucky. I was very scared to tell Jay what was going on, because I really thought if he heard all of the things, I didn't want him to think less of me, and
Right.
be disappointed. And at some point in all of that, when I was defending my ex and trying to make it work, like, I did feel like a villain myself, that I was a part of all of it. So
Yeah.
so when I met Jay, it was like, there was this Brenna, and then there was like this Brenna that I want to be, that I'm trying to be. So I had low tolerance for bullshit. Like, let's set expectations. Let's do the
Right.
things that we say we're gonna do. I mean, I think he stood me up once, and God bless him. He had a day job, and I was very much a night owl. So I was getting up, around lunchtime, maybe smoke a bowl and go to work, you know. And he was like, he had like a grown up job. He worked for Time Warner Cable, and no drugs, no nothing. He had a house and two dogs. Like, he was definitely grown up. Um,
Right.
but I think he fell asleep one time, and my friends and I were like drunk, and we're gonna go sledding. And I was like, "Did you ever stand me up again? Like, don't have me looking for you." And he was like, "Okay, sorry." And then that was
Yes,
it.
ma'am.
And then he never stood me up again. And now I'm like, man, I put you through the ringer when we first
Yeah.
met. But then it shifted, and I like completely fell in love with him, so it's fine. I'm like, I had the upper
Yeah.
hand for a little bit, but it went away. I'm like, anything you want.
Right. That's funny. Yeah, I mean, that there's that saying again, right? Shame lives in darkness.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't, and then you had to be so exposed and so vulnerable. And you were like between two worlds.
Mm-hmm.
You're trying to get rid of the ex, who knew the story that kept pulling you back, and then trying to meet this new guy. You knew you had to tell the story, but that exposes your soul,
Yeah.
like the tiny little soft parts of your soul.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
I'm pretty fortunate.
And they lived happily ever after,
We did.
right?
Yeah. As we say, we're living the dream. I mean, it's, there's we had kids and stuff, so we're a big yelly household sometimes. But
Yeah.
That's how it is.
It's the way it goes. Hey, man, that's how you know you're alive.
Yeah. Yep.
Let's talk about your sister's house.
Yeah.
Tell me a little more about that.
I mean, my sister's house they've been doing good work here in the Low Country for, I think, it's got to be like almost 43 years now or so. I think they've been feeling some of the uncertainties with funding because of all the things going on with the government.
Yeah.
So we're doing everything that we can. I've been working with them. They've had some internal changes lately, and they have some new staff members now. But I've been working with them to do. I am like a mission advocate. I went through training. Jason went through training. I voluntold him. I was like, you got to do this because like we need more men in the room, and you're a girl dad, so like you're a powerful figure to come and do all this, and it would be good to hear perspectives that are not just mine. But he's been like a willing participant, like he's embraced all of it. But I've been working with my sister's house to work on a program for education. So we're looking to kind of reach like certain industries is part of the drive for it, right? So like my background is food and bev before getting into insurance, and food and bev has a lot of overlap with drug and alcohol abuse, domestic violence. So where we've connected with some of the organizations here in Charleston, and the goal is to get in front of as many people as we can to just talk about it. Like, this is the program, and this is how your individual companies can become partners with my sister's house, so that whether it's your HR department or what have you, that they're trained and they know signs and flags to look for, but more importantly that they're circulating information so that people can find that there's help out there, because that's something like growing up I didn't have any type of we didn't have like a speaker come to middle school or high school to talk about domestic violence, and it seems like why wouldn't you do that? But
because we're too busy bringing people that teach us about snakes and shit. Right? I mean,
this is true. Don't take away my animals, but
right.
But agreed. So that's where it's like, when people are like, well, what are you going to do with this next? I'm like, who do you have that I can talk to? Like, people have to hear about it. So I'm working with one of the bigger regional groups here in Charleston to try to put something together there. And then the plan is to just see really who's going to let us in and who's going to let us come and circulate this information, because a lot of times you're not going to have somebody, like if you're at a law firm, for example, you're not going to have somebody come in and necessarily tell the person in HR, hey, I'm going through this, what do I do? But if there's a flyer in a bathroom, or if there's an email circulated that just quietly gives people resources, that's underrated on how important and impactful it can be. So we're working with them. Last year we sponsored the Palmetto SHRM, which is a human resource management group here in Charleston. We sponsored their October meeting, and we had a drive that ran alongside that, so people could donate. They could donate funds, they could bring in, we had a list of wants and things, and then they could bring items that day, and then we had someone from my sister's house come and kind of speak to the group. And then myself and one of my teammates who has also been through domestic violence, we got up and we spoke a little bit about why my sister's house is important and things like that. And then it was funny because they were like, okay, and now talk about Brown and Brown. And I was like, okay, like changing gears, talk about work. But these things, I mean, they exist at the same time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and
we pretend they don't.
And that's the thing. Like, it doesn't, for me, who I'm becoming is I'm powerful, right? I have a voice, I have thoughts, I have
Yeah.
opinions, I have a want to do good, and I absolutely walk into a room like God sent me there, and I do it on purpose. It makes me feel good, and it also it opens up to the opportunities, right? And then I attract. I don't chase. So I'm attracting abundance and all the good things.
Right.
But I want people to feel good and safe when they talk to me, and I want them to be able to trust me that like I can connect you with help, whatever it is, and that it doesn't have to be like just because you went through this, you don't have to sit somewhere and just be thankful that you're alive and be quiet and ashamed. Like you can live a bold, happy, like bright
Yeah.
life and be like,
Yeah.
yeah, no, I definitely ate shit for a while, but I don't eat shit
Yeah.
anymore.
Right. That's very good. So people need to go hear your TED Talk. Brenna, they can just search Brenna Lawrence TED Talk and find
It's
it.
out there, yeah. It's on YouTube.
On the YouTube. It's on the interwebs.
Yep, forever.
And then from there, they can go to my sister's house and donate.
Yeah.
After they hear your story, because they will be compelled.
I mean, I love that. And as I say in the TED Talk, there is a plethora of ways to get involved. I mean, people really underestimate it. It's not just speaking and money and like donating clothes and things. I mean, there are a lot of different ways
Yeah.
that we can help people, especially when you think of it as simply as just education and who do you know that we can get introduced to and make a difference. I mean, it's a big deal.
Just giving somebody some hope. Hey, you know what? I don't know what you're going through, but I do know there's always a safe place to land. And sometimes we feel like there isn't.
Well, it's wild because a woman that I met her on LinkedIn. I spent all my time on LinkedIn, but she saw my TED Talk, and we talked about connecting over coffee, and then it just kind of slipped through the cracks, and we hadn't met. And then she saw my TED Talk, and she reached out again. And then I realized, I was like, hey, the ball was in my court. Like, I never followed up with you, so like, let's get together, let's have coffee. So we were having coffee, and she said when she saw my TED Talk, she sent it to her daughter. And then the daughter had a friend who was actively going through abuse, and the daughter has been trying to help the friend get out of it and sent her the TED Talk. And I'm not at all saying that the TED Talk put her over the edge, but it definitely impacted her. And now, like, since the TED Talk, now she's out of it. Like, she got out. And the lady, she told me that, and I was like, that's not because of me. She's like, I'm not saying it's because of you, but, like, it's not because of you. And I was like, well...
Prove it. Prove it's not because of you. Prove it.
It really did. I was like, that if I did that, or if something that I did helped, then that's great. I mean, that's what I wanted to do. And I knew the day that I gave the TED Talk, even if nobody ever tells me, I know that I'm reaching someone that's like, she's talking to me. And I said, like, I am talking to you. Like, I know that you're in here. You don't have to tell me. But, like, you don't own the shame because you don't. And
right.
That's, like, the most powerful part of that is, like, you just have to stop letting it happen. Like, gotta find a way to stop.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. That's the choice, right? That's the choose.
Yeah. Well, I tell my girls, if you're being a butthead, stop making butthead choices. And, like, they will inevitably get better.
Yeah.
You gotta stop.
Yep. You've been so fun to talk to.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Great to talk to you. And I'm on Spotify now. I have it's a much shorter little pep talk type podcast, but I do have
cool.
I have Hey Hold That Door, which is on Instagram, and the same name as my podcast on Spotify, which I'm gonna figure out how to grow that. But they're just little pep talks right now.
Hey Hold That Door.
Hey Hold That Door, which is so our family motto for Team Lawrence is don't be a dick. So don't be a dick is across all the things. It's like return the shopping cart, hold the door, like just don't be a dick in everything that you do. So when I say, hey, hold that door, it has different meanings. So it's definitely like, don't be a dick, hold the door. And then also as a woman getting into spaces that we weren't welcomed in, whether it was like glass ceiling, paper ceiling, whatever it is, when I get into spaces that I haven't been welcome in or unfamiliar with, like I'm holding the door for the next one, because I am a girl's girl at my heart. So I want to help all of us get to where we're meant to be.
And if someone were to want to get in touch with you, how would they do that?
You can hit me up on Instagram. I'm obviously all over LinkedIn.
And you're a boomer, right? So you're on LinkedIn. You still and MySpace? Are you on? Isn't it
I
MySpace?
was on MySpace. I had a top 5. I mean, I tell people, I'm like, I'm so old I had a beeper. Like, what? I'm like, I had a beeper. 100%.
What does that make me? You're far younger than me, so I still carry around my phone in a bag.
Oh, no.
And I don't communicate with the email. Just fax me. Just fax it. You've been awesome. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it, Jeff. It was great.
Thanks for your vulnerability and your honesty and the laughs.
Thank you. Same.
Thanks for listening to All Can, No Can't. If today's episode resonated with you, remember it's not about the chaos you face. It's about how you choose to take back control. It's about finding that one small can in the can't you're given and grinding it down. Find your angle, carve your place out in the world, and get the fucking win. Do that by finding what you can do and not listening to what you can't. You choose. Be sure to subscribe, share, and leave a review. Your support helps me reach more people that are ready to embrace the all-can mindset. And it lets them know there's someone that's willing to walk with them no matter how dark the path gets. You can find me on Insta at JDLuther 2.0 and allcan_no-can't. This is where I share more tips, stories, inspiration to help fuel your journey. And until next time, keep pushing boundaries, breaking limits, proving to yourself that anything is possible, even when you're told it isn't. Remember, life's not about can't. It's all can. Go prove them wrong.